Hey Rhinos, Dr. FJ, Rhino University, going through the second part of the report of findings, the financial presentation. This is by far the most messed up part in the communication process, and right there with the consultation is so important. If you do a bad consultation, you're screwed. But if you mess this part up, you can do a great consultation, do a great R.O.F, and then shoot yourself in the foot. So the consultation, you're building a rapport, building that trust, building your authority, really positioning yourself as the expert so they know you can deliver, they trust you. And now you're going to clearly lay out the plan so they know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how they're going to benefit, and what it's going to cost them. And so everything's clearly laid out. And again, you want to remove all the pressure from the situation. As I talked about last video, letting people, it's okay to say no is so important. So there's no pressure, okay? And just, you can relax. You want it to be just a nice, friendly conversation. You don't have to use fear or any of those other things to try and build value, but you do have to cover some things really importantly. So the first step is if your CA is doing it, your CA is going to review your recommendation. So the CA is going to re-review the doctor's recommendation. So Dr. FJ is recommended, whatever, 3 times a week for 4 weeks, twice a week for 4 weeks, once a week for 4 weeks, twice a week for 12 weeks, whatever it is. And then I've already gotten agreement on that. So that's really important. The doctor has to get the agreement, or whoever's reviewing the x-rays has to get the agreement on the frequency. Really, really important. But then if the CA comes in and just reiterates it, then they're going to cover 3 responses to care. So they're going to go through the 3 responses to care. So, 30% of people feel better, 30% of people feel worse, 30% of people feel the same, whatever you find in your office. 50% of people feel better, 10% of people feel worse, 40% of people feel the same, whatever you found. If you're new in practice, a lot of the young docs just do 30, 30, 30 until they know. But once you've been in practice years, you have a pretty good idea. And you also usually have a pretty good idea who is going to feel really sore and who's not. You don't always know, but there are surprises, but lots of times you have a pretty good idea. So you're just going to go through that, and I just draw out in front of them. This all handwritten. Don't do those real printed. Years ago, I was just handwriting everything out, making it super simple, and then I stopped because no one was doing it. And I started printing out these super complicated with all these numbers, and I was just confusing patients like crazy. And my sister-in-law was actually working for us at the time. She goes, "You need to go back to the old way. Just write it up, make it really easy." So you want this to be as simple as possible, as simple and as easy to understand as possible, okay? So you always want to bring it down and explain it as simply as possible. It's fine when you go into x-rays to use some doctor lingo, but then break it down and explain it to them. That kind of shows your authority, but then they make it understandable. Okay, so when you're going through this, through phases of care, there's 2 things I teach my team to do. Is one, I like to use an analogy to make the unfamiliar familiar. So a lot of times I'll say, what we do is a lot like braces in the spine, and boom. So the same way the orthodontist puts wires on the teeth to move your teeth in alignment, we're going to use our hands and x-rays to bring the bones in alignment. If we're going to do any other, if we're going to do some decompression or things like that, then we'll cover that when we go through the features, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Then I also like to go through the benefits. So as we're going through, your body's going to be healing. So you went through already the tissue healing times, the doctor does that, or whoever's reviewing the x-rays. Now through the responses, you draw the line, so you can draw a line kind of like this, and like this. So obviously better, same at first, and then initially feel worse but get better. And then as you're going through this, I'll say, okay, as we're healing, we're going to do regular re-exams. We talk about the features, and we're going to want to see you exercising better little by little, and whatever they want to do, okay? That's their want, right? Their want is to exercise again, to walk normally, to work in their wood shop with no tingling in their hands, to sleep through the night, to get back to whatever it is they want to do. So their wants are their motivators, and so you really want to make sure to focus them on that, and that's going to build the most value for what you're doing. And that's how you ethically and principally build value the right way, and you get people, and it's also a nice way to motivate people as they're going, because coming in 2 or 3 times a week's a lot. It's a big commitment. And 2 weeks in, I like to review and continue to remind them of what we're going after, what our goal, what our purpose is. So getting into the wants and using an analogy. Then we're going to get into the features. Okay, so this is you're going to basically value load here, and you're going to go, okay, we're going to do adjust ya, and then you also want to cover common objections. So you want to let them know adjustment takes whatever, 2 to 3 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, whatever it is in your office. So let them know what an adjustment takes, what techniques are going to be done. And this again is used to differentiate yourself. So we're going to do Gonstead, Thompson, activated. We're going to do NUCA, DNFT, and Thompson, and then some flexion distraction. So we're going through that and explaining what each one is, and walking in the order, walking out is usually going to take about a half hour. So I'm going through that. So we're just little by little explaining every detail. If we're doing any therapeutic exercise or any traction, I'm going to explain that. We're going to do this exercise, we're going to do traction. Then we'll do 3 re-exams every 4 weeks. So we draw it there. As we're going, the first month I always tell them risk, rest, ice, supplements, get checked. Okay, then after that we'll give you some exercises you can start doing, some stretches, and then in the 3rd month we'll give you some core exercises. We have a handout in all the adjusting rooms for that. And then we also have a second visit handout that reiterates it, and I put a retracing brochure, and you can get those if you want. It goes through a lot of what we cover at the report of findings. So you're going through all the features, value loading, everything you're going to do for them. Boom, boom, boom. And if there's a progression, you're going to go through that. People love progression. So the first month, we're going to do that. That's phase 1. And the second month, we're going to go into get you doing some stretches. 3rd month, we're going to go into some core exercises. If you're doing different things in the office, like you're adding in traction, or you're changing traction, or you're increasing the tension or the weight, let them know all of that. Okay? So that progression, people really like that. All right? We all want progression and engagement when we are working with anyone, right? With a personal trainer, I want to know that I'm getting fitter and my body's looking better. That's why they have you take pictures, or they do fitness tests every 90 days or 30 days, so you can see, oh, I am getting better, or else we forget how far we come. And it's the same with your patients. If you don't show progression with what you're doing, and then also how they're getting better, that's why it's so important to be really detailed with their wants. If they want to walk better, what is that? That doesn't mean anything. What can you do now? I can only walk 1 block before I have to sit down. Okay, so a month in, you can walk 10 blocks. Oh, that's wonderful. You're getting better. And then so you consistently monitor that, and you really have to be detailed with their wants, their quality of life limitations, their QLs. You got to be very, very detailed with that, and you want to cover that consistently throughout your R.O.F. So go through the features and you just write it up: adjustment, techniques, any therapeutic exercises, traction, therapeutic exercise. So when you do the adjustment, you can write out how long it's going to take, 2 to 10 minutes, whatever. Write out the techniques you're going to do: NUCA, Thompson, flexion distraction, whatever. You go through re-exams, re-x-rays. So then you go through time, 30 minutes. Now is where you can start going through the cost. And I strongly urge you not to hide it. I know a lot of people are teaching that, where you just kind of give them this big number and you don't explain it. But a lot of those people I know have been, have had all kinds of board complaints and insurance audits because patients complain because they don't know what they're paying for. And if one little upset happens, boom, they can make a phone call, and now you're dealing with a whole lot of stress and you don't want to deal with. So let them know up front, okay, we're going to be doing, the office visit, adjustment, traction, therapy, exercise. So for an office visit, it's 45, 35, 95, whatever it is for you and what you're doing. And then we're going to do a re-x-ray, and that is whatever, 75, 105, 950, whatever you're charging for it, let them know. So they know all that up front, okay? Now then you're going to go to the 3 options. So at the bottom, you're going to write out per visit. Okay, that's obviously your most expensive option. That's if they go each time, and that's their out, right? They can just choose that. So if your office visit 75, they can just come in, pay 75, get a great adjustment, and get a few of those. Now, I never overpromise. I say, listen, have we had people whose lives have been changed after 1 or 2 adjustments? Yes, but that's not the majority. So we're going to give you a few adjustments. Go 2 to 3 times a week for a few weeks. If you're not improving, I don't want to waste your time and money, because this is all symptomatic care. We're not doing any post x-rays or any in-depth evaluations, so we're not going to know if we're fixing it or not. So we'll just go a few weeks. If everything goes perfect, great. If things aren't looking the way I want, you're not holding the way I want, then let's hold off and wait to do more in-depth care. So I haven't overpromised, but I'm taking care of them at their level of understanding, and I haven't lost the patient, right? So many times if you kick them out of your office, you're just sending their x-rays to another chiropractor, and especially if you're a new doc in practice, that can be devastating for your business. So there's no need to do that. They're still my patient. They're still going to refer to me. They're going to react to me, and I build up that foundation of referrals and reacts by taking great care of them. So you have the per visit option, then you do the one time. Make sure to check with your state and figure out what kind of payment plans and things you're allowed to do. But then you can do the one time, all right? And so you just fill that out, whatever the discount is, you're gonna show the discount for that, and then the total, and that's what they get if they take care of it up front, if you're allowed to do that in your state. And then you can discount the non-covered services you're doing. So again, check with your state board for whatever the rules and regulations, or your country or province. It's always a little different, but do the per visit, show the total and the discount each time. And remember, a couple things to understand about psychology is, one, that people will usually choose the middle option, both price-wise, commitment-wise, and spatially. So when you focus on three objects, it's easier to look at the one in the middle. So because you're predominantly focused on that one, you get a greater level of importance. So people will be more inclined to choose the middle option. So if you make the middle option the largest discount, it's very persuasive. Now you haven't done anything unethical, you've just made it as persuasive as possible and tried to help them to choose the best option, okay? And that is usually, most people are gonna choose the highest discount anyway, so you put it in the middle. That's what most people do because it's the largest discount. And then that's what most people are gonna do. And then the third option out, you can do installments. Now, if you choose to do per visit 1 month or 3 months, now you have a middle commitment option. So most people are gonna choose the middle commitment option, which is 1 month, all right? So I would recommend not doing that. I would do per visit, or they commit and do the 90 days. So they do, the one time where they do it all up front, or they do an auto debit where they break it up into 3 installments. And that way you either get the commitment and you go and do the full plan, or you hold off and wait. And then I also let people know, depending on what you're allowed to do, you can do care credit, and that's another way to take care of it. But understanding that is really important. And understand contrast too. You want to start always with your most expensive option and come down. It makes it seem naturally less. You always want to start with the longest care option. So when you're going over the tissue healing times, you want to start with soft tissue and nerves, that's a year, and then muscles are 90 days, because it just makes 90 days seem a little less. So you're just using that psychology to your benefit. Okay, so you go through that, and then you're just gonna say, does everything make sense? And people love to know, what's your close? Just what works best for you. Which would you prefer? Which one would you like to do? And then sit and be quiet and wait for them to respond. And just be comfortable with that. And don't interrupt them while they're thinking. Let them just think. Give them the time. Don't rush them. Don't pressure them. Give them the time to think and let them make their decision, and then go give them the best adjustment you can. Okay, and if your marketing's dialing in and you're bringing in a lot of quality new patients, your team is really well trained, your communication's good, and then also your adjustment's really good, you get all that together and you're gonna have a rocking office. Okay, so put this to work. You can have a super successful cash-paid practice. You don't have to have insurance. You can do really well. You just have to be very skilled, and you got to get great results. You got to get really good at delivering quality adjustments. There are no shortcuts. You got to devote your time to being a master chiropractor, and then devote your time to great marketing, great communication, and a really well-trained team, and then honing and sharpening your mindset constantly. And if you do all those things, you're gonna kill it. You're gonna have a great life, a great practice, have a lot of fun, help a ton of people, and just you're gonna be a rock star, man. You're gonna be a rhino. Until next time, keep charging.